Topic: Nutrient cycles. Water, oxygen, carbon, and nitrogen cycles. Aims of lesson. At the end of this lesson, you should be able to know the following: a water cycle, a oxygen cycle, a carbon cycle, a nitrogen cycle. Revise the topic ecosystems in the previous lesson. Concepts and skills. Below are definitions of some of the terms that you will study under this section. Use your textbook and underline all the new terms/words that you encounter while studying through this section. Use the glossary in your textbook to define these new terms/words. Note: at least 2 marks are awarded if you can define a term correctly in a test or examination. Nitrification. The process during which ammonia is processed to form nitrites and eventually nitrates. Denitrification. The process during which ammonia and nitrates are converted to free nitrogen gas in the atmosphere. Carbon dioxide. The form in which carbon occurs in the atmosphere. Oxygen. The gas released in the atmosphere during photosynthesis. Study the following content. Water cycle. Note: you have studied the water cycle in Lesson 5. Revise the questions in Lesson 5. The water cycle is the cyclic movement of water between the Earth and the atmosphere. Water moves from the atmosphere to the Earth in the form of rain, snow, fog, hail, and dew. This is called precipitation. A part of the water that reaches the Earth is absorbed by the upper layers of soil to form hygroscopic and capillary water. Some of the water filters through the upper layers of the soil to the water table. This process during which water is absorbed by the soil is known as infiltration. Some of the water runs off above the ground and forms streams and rivers that flow into lakes and oceans. Water reaches the atmosphere by evaporation from large water masses and from the soil. Plants transpire and lose water to the atmosphere in the form of water vapor. Large amounts of water vapor condense and form clouds. Oxygen cycle. The Earth has a fixed amount of oxygen, which occurs in the atmosphere, oceans, rocks, and all living organisms. Living organisms, plants and animals, use oxygen in various forms. Through the process of photosynthesis, green plants use the carbon dioxide, CO2, in the atmosphere to form carbohydrates and oxygen, O2. Animals and plants absorb oxygen from the atmosphere to break down carbohydrates into carbon dioxide and water during the process of respiration. Decomposers, bacteria and fungi, use oxygen to decompose organic matter and release carbon dioxide. A large amount of oxygen is dissolved in water of oceans, lakes, and rivers. Organisms living in water use oxygen for respiration and decomposition and release carbon dioxide in the water. Oxygen from the atmosphere combines with silicon and iron in rocks to form silicates and rust, resulting in weathering of rocks. Organisms such as lichens break down rocks, weathering, over thousands of years and release nutrients and oxygen for living organisms. Nitrogen cycle. Living organisms need nitrogen to form amino acids that are the building blocks of proteins. Nitrogen gas occurs in large amounts in the atmosphere, but plants and animals cannot use it in this form. Plants can only use nitrogen in the form of nitrates. Free nitrogen is converted in nitrates in 2 ways. Electrical fixation by lightning and rain. Nitrogen-fixing bacteria. Bacteria in the soil absorb nitrogen from the soil and convert it into nitrates. Nodule bacteria on the roots of legumes convert free nitrogen to nitrates. The nitrates are absorbed by plant roots, and the nitrogen in nitrates is used to form plant proteins. Animals eat plants and use the nitrogen to produce animal proteins. When plants and animals die, the proteins in their bodies are broken down into ammonia by decomposition bacteria. Excretion, e.g. urine, of animals contain urea, which is also converted into ammonia. Nitrifying bacteria convert ammonia into nitrates, which is returned to the soil and absorbed by plants. Nitrates in the soil are also converted to free nitrogen in the atmosphere by denitrifying bacteria. Carbon cycle. A carbon occurs in the form of carbon dioxide, CO2, in the atmosphere, and some is dissolved in water. Green plants use carbon dioxide during photosynthesis to produce organic compounds, e.g. carbohydrates. The carbon which form part of organic compounds in plants is transferred to animals when they eat plant material. Sometimes dead plant and animal remains do not decompose but are fossilized to form fossil fuels, coal and oil. Carbon dioxide returns to the atmosphere in 3 ways. Cellular respiration. Organic compounds in plants and animals are broken down in the presence of oxygen and energy. Water and carbon dioxide are released. Decomposition. Decomposers break down organic compounds in dead plants and animals and release carbon in the form of carbon dioxide. Combustion. Wood and fossil fuels release carbon dioxide during combustion. Know the meaning of instructional verbs in test and examination questions, e.g. Instructional verb. Meaning. Name. Give the name of something. Differentiate. Use differences to qualify between 2 or more categories. Tabulate. Draw a table and indicate the answers as direct pairs. Describe. State in sentences the main points of a process. Explain. Give your answer in a cause-effect or statement and reason sequence. Compare. Give similarities and differences between concepts. Answer the following questions. Question 1. 1. The carbon cycle is very important to life as it ensures that carbon is constantly available. Free State 2017 P2. Respiration, combustion, decomposition, photosynthesis, fossilization. 1.1 Use the terms above the diagram to complete the flow chart that represents the carbon cycle. Write only the numbers 1-5 and next to it the correct term. Question 2. 2. All organic compounds contain the element carbon, c. 2.1 Name the main source of carbon and the form in which it is used for the synthesis of organic compounds. 2.2 Name the process during which carbon is fixed in organic food. 2.3 Name 3 ways in which carbon is replaced in the abiotic environment during recycling. Question 3. 3. Study the diagram showing the nitrogen cycle below. Eastern Cape P2 2018. 3.1 Identify the nitrogenous compound represented by labels A, B, and C. 3.2 Name the process labeled D by which nitrogen is returned to the atmosphere. 3.3 Name the plants labeled E that form a symbiotic relationship with nitrogen-fixing bacteria. 3.4 Name the weather phenomenon labeled F that is responsible for forming nitrates in the atmosphere. Common errors made by learners in examinations. Not familiar with basic terminology. Not understanding instructional verb /s in a question, e.g. the difference between describe and explain. Not able to interpret information in diagrams. Activities/assessment. Complete the activities/questions in your textbook on the sections of this lesson. Consolidation. Define all the terminology relevant to the concepts covered in this lesson. Label and draw flow charts. Interpret diagrams. Values. By studying and learning about this section, you will develop an awareness of what it means to be a responsible citizen in terms of the environment and develop a deep appreciation of the importance of conservation.